So these are the current affairs for today. So this is the UPSC Key for 5th August, the Gen Z, the Odyssey and UN Secretary General. So why Gen Z participation in Indian politics is relevant to the UPSC exam? What is the significance of topics such as the Monetary Policy Committee, Sheikh Hasina and the Indo-Greek Kingdoms on both the preliminary and mains examination? So let us read this key. So on the front page in Indian Express we have this news: Gen Z loud and clear on the street but invisible in parliament and assemblies. So from the prelims point of view, the syllabus is economic and social development, and from mains examination it is general studies 2, GS2, population and associated issues and salient features of Indian society and diversity of India. So what is the ongoing story? So on the streets, Gen Z's voice rings loud and clear, but in Parliament and the state legislatures, it remains a faint echo. So what are the key points that you should focus on? So who is called a Gen Z? So what is the difference between a Gen Z and a millennial? What is generation alpha, generation beta and generation gamma? You should know the difference. So UPSC is famous for asking questions on whatever goes on in the country. So what is the demographic dividend? Which constitutional provision guarantees universal adult suffrage in India? So you must know those election provisions as well. And what are the major concerns relating to Gen Z? Generation Z represents a major force of social transformation in India. How far do you agree? And know the role of youth participation in strengthening Indian democracy. India's demographic dividend will depend largely on Generation Z. How? So what are the barriers to Gen Z participation in Indian politics? So let us read. The reason, that is, Gen Z accounts for over a quarter of the country's population. So that is around 25% of the country's population now is Gen Z. Yet its representation in politics is restricted to just 26 legislators across the countries. So there are 6 Lok Sabha MPs which are Gen Zs and 20 MLAs, which is a very low number, even though the minimum age to contest elections is 25, which rules out a chunk of this demographic. So the reasons also, the point gives that the minimum age to contest elections is 25. So naturally a lot of Gen Zs will be out of the race, but still the representation is very low, only 26 legislators across the country, despite Gen Z representing 25% of the country's population. So when the age band is stretched to 40, the number of legislators in this group expands to 397 MLAs and 40 MPs. So if you expand, so like from 25 to 40, when this age band is stretched, that is politicians between the age of 25 to 40, the number of legislators are 397 MLAs and 40 MPs. The current Lok Sabha, which is elected in 2024, offered the first opportunity for Gen Z representatives to enter the lower house. The Congress has the most Gen Z MPs at 3, followed by the SP at 2 and LJP, that is RV, at 1. So UP and Karnataka have 2 Gen Z MPs each, while Bihar and Rajasthan have 1 each. Now the Gen Z MPs are SPs Pushpendra Saroj 27 from Kaushambi and Priya Saroj, she is the wife of Rinku Sharma cricketer, from Machli Shahar in UP. Congress Sagar Khandre 28 from Bidar and Priyanka Satish Jharikoli 29 from Chikodi in Karnataka. Then there is Sanjana Jatav 28 from Bharatpur in Rajasthan and LJP Ram Vilas Sambhavi 28 from Samastipur in Bihar. Now these 6 MPs were the only winners among the 98 Gen Z Lok Sabha candidates in 2024, who accounted for just 1.2% of all the 8,360 candidates in the fray. So 8,360 candidates who were running for elections, out of which only 98 Gen Z candidates were there, which is only about 1.2% of all the candidates. So they are standing also less in elections. These numbers matter by the 2029 Lok Sabha elections. Gen Z could account for the largest share of India's voting age population, if you see. So that is above 18 age of years. When the 2029 elections will happen, Gen Z will be the largest share of India's voting population. 2011 census, that is 2011 census, does not have age-wise projections for 2029. Its projections for the 2031 places the Gen Z populations, which will then be aged between 19 and 34, at approximately 26.3%. So all the people, so the Gen Z populations which will be aged between 19 to 34 at 26.3%, while millennials in contrast will comprise 21.7%. in 2031, down from roughly 22.2% in 2026. So the statistics, you should know the pattern that the Gen Z population will increase and the millennial population will decrease, which is natural. Older generations, including those which were born in 1980 or before, will together account for, so born on or before 1980 will account for 24%. So Gen Z will be the largest voting share. So do you know, defined as those which are born between 1997 and 2012 or in the age band of 14 to 29, Gen Z account for 36.74 crores or 25.8% of the country's 142.6 crore population in 2026 as per 2011 census projections. So this is 2011 census projections only. So defined as those which are born, so you must know the exact number, this is an important part. So defined as those which are born between 1997 and 2012 or in the age band of 14 to 29, Gen Z accounts for 36.74 crores or 25.8% of the country's 142 crore population in 2026. The Gen Z populations aged 25 and older alone accounts for an estimated 8.9% of the country's population. So 8.9% of the country's population is aged 25 till 29. So that is the Gen Z. So Gen Z includes people who are born from 1997 to 2012. They follow millennials and come before generation alpha. So all those which are born after 2012, they are called generation alpha. Then before that we have Gen Z, which is born between 1997 and 2012, and before that we have the millennials, often called zoomers. They are the first group to grow up with smartphones, social media and the internet all around them from a very young age. So they are often called zoomers, Gen Z. They are the first group that have grown with smartphones from the very start, social media and internet all around them from a very young age. So demographers, researchers and media outlets name generations using sequential letters of the Greek alphabet to track distinct social and technological cohorts. So this is very important. So that demographers, researchers and media outlets name generations using sequential letters or the Greek alphabet to track distinct social and technological cohorts. The term millennials was coined by authors William Strauss, Neil Howe, while Generation Z and Generation Beta follow alphabetical naming conventions popularized by social researchers like Mark McCrindle. Generation Gamma is simply the logical next step in the sequence. So alpha and gamma and beta will be also there. So this is an important point, that to track the distinct social technological cohorts. And millennial, it was coined by authors William Strauss and Neil Howe. So you must remember the author name. Generation Z and beta follow alphabetical naming. Gen Z, so naming conventions. And all these years I have shouted that it's not Z, it's Z, and now Gen Z, it's confirmed that it's a Z. So and Gen Beta follow alphabetical naming conventions popularized by social researchers like Mark and McCrindle. So simply the logical next step. Now the term Gen Z was not invented by a single person. Media outlets, social researchers and demographers adopted it as a sequential placeholder that was labeled following Generation X and Generation Y millennials. Now early alternatives like iGen, plurals, post-millennials were floated by groups like the Pew Research Center, but Gen Z stuck organically through the general media usage. So this is the article, India's two youths why gap between unemployment graduates and credit score chasers matters. Now let us see, this is questions 2013. So to obtain the full benefits of demographic dividend, what should India do? Promote skill development, introduce more social security schemes, reduce the infant mortality rate, privatization of higher education. Very easy, promoting skill development. So the next topic from Polity only is, amid opposition protests, Rajya Sabha has passed a registration of births and death bills. Now current events of national international importance, and from Mains perspective, GS2 Polity, government policies, interventions for the development in various sectors and issues arising out of the design and implementation. What's the ongoing story? So the Rajya Sabha has passed the registrations of births and deaths Amendment Bill 2026 by a voice vote on Tuesday afternoon amid slogans from the opposition. The Lok Sabha had cleared the bill last week. The upper house ran for less than an hour in the afternoon before being adjourned for the day soon after the passage of the bill. Now, what is the registration of births and deaths Amendment Bill 2026? And we should know the key provisions and what are the issues and the challenges there. You must know. What is the civil registration system? What is the difference between the census and the civil registration system? Very important, you must know. Reliable birth and death registration is essential for evidence-based policy making. Discuss. Now let us see. The bill, which has stricter provisions for delayed registrations, was introduced by Minister of State Home Nityanand Rai. The bill seeks to amend provisions of the Registrations of Births and Deaths Act 1969 to tighten the existing norms, mandating an order from a judicial magistrate first class for birth and death registrations made over 2 years after the event. So, if after 2 years of the birth event or of the death event you are going to register, in that case you can be charged a penalty. So that is what the amendment is about, and you will have to get an order from a judicial magistrate of first class. Now, under the existing law, registrations delayed by over 1 year, this is the existing law, require an order from a district magistrate, subdivisional magistrate, or an authorized executive magistrate, and the provisions will continue to apply for delays up to 2 years under the amended law. So, and the provision will continue to apply for delays of up to 2 years. Now, leader of opposition Mallikarjun Kharge started the discussions by saying the only way to see the house function normally is the Prime Minister shows up, but he was cut short by the Deputy Chairperson Harivansh. While BJP members supported the bill, some members such as BJD, Santrup Mishra, United People's Party, Liberal member Pramod Boro, and Shiv Sena's Jyoti Nagnath Wagmare objected to the provisions of a judicial magistrate order for birth and death registration. Now, Boro said that the judicial magistrates are overburdened and this requirement will lead to delays in registrations. He said that there was a disparity in the number of judicial magistrates across states. Now, do you know that the Registration of Births and Deaths Amendment Bill 2026 was introduced in the Lok Sabha on July 29, 2026. It seeks to amend the provisions of the Registrations of the Births and Deaths Act of 1969. Now, under this, an order is required to register a birth or a death for which information is given to a registrar after 1 year of its occurrence, such as an order may be issued by a DM, SDM, or an executive magistrate which has been authorized by the DM. Now, the order may be issued after verifying the correctness and on the payment of a prescribed fee. Now, the bill instead provides that for a delay of more than 2 years, the order may be issued only by a judicial. That is what the amendment is. That for a delay of more than 2 years, the order will be only issued by a judicial magistrate of the first class. That is, you need then an order from the judge. Okay. Now, consider the following stages of demographic transitions associated with economic development and important questions you must know. So, low birth rate with low death rate, high birth rate with high death rate. So, you have to associate that these transitions with economic development. Now, high birth rate with low death rate. So, I think the third will be the high. I don't think that will be. So, low birth rate with low death rate is one. So, that should be at the last, I feel. Then high birth rate with high death rate should be the first. So, 2 and 1. I think the answer should be C. We'll verify this later. So, 2 ka C. I think so much. Okay. There should be, what I am murmuring is that we should have something to write on the screen as well so that we can check our answers later. Now, I have written it on my side, so don't worry, we will check it definitely and later. So, Delhi distances itself from Hasina event today. Dhaka wants its media not to air. Now, very important, current events of national and international importance, and GS2 India and its neighborhood relations. IR. Moving to address concerns in Dhaka, Delhi made it clear Tuesday it was neither involved in nor was it going to endorse any view air during ousted Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's public interaction scheduled Wednesday in the capital. She is expected to announce her return home and outline her vision for Bangladesh. So she's a personality in news. Former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. You must know the India and Bangladesh bilateral relations. You must know what happened after August 2024, how things changed drastically. You all must have seen in the news as well. What are the areas of cooperation between India and Bangladesh? What are the issues and challenges and how they can strengthen the relations? What is the significance of Bangladesh for India and how external influences shaping domestic policies in Bangladesh? Let us see. The event being held at the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia is trying to coincide the second anniversary of the fall of Hasina government on August 5th, 2024. So, 2 saal ho gaye is event ko, and that is it. So, faced with widespread protests, so Foreign Correspondents Club mein ho raha hai. Faced with widespread protests in Bangladesh, Hasina fled the country. She has been living in India since ever. Abhi second time hai, she will be addressing the public via virtual mode in Delhi. Now, Bangladesh has sought India's cooperation to ensure that Hasina or anyone who is linked to her organization that have been banned is not allowed to use Indian territory to deliver political speeches or carry out activities which are aimed at creating instability in Bangladesh. मतलब ऐसा कुछ ना बोलें थ्रू द टेरिटरी ऑफ इंडिया में जब तक हैं जो वहाँ पे पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी ला दे, सो मे भी दंगे फसाद हो जाए, ऐसा कुछ नहीं बोलना है. सो न्यूज़ एजेंसी Reuters reported Tuesday that Bangladesh information advisor Zahid ur Rahman warned his country's media that announcing or publicizing Hasina's planned speech would violate a December 2024 order by Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal that prohibits media outlets and social media platforms from publishing or broadcasting Hasina's speeches, statements, interviews, audios and video messages. Now Hasina और वहाँ की मीडिया को भी वार्न कर दिया गया है. Hasina's aide Abu Ubaida Arin said the event would go ahead, adding that Dhaka's efforts to silence dissent cannot extinguish voices. We'll start the series on polity, so you'll see the beautiful meaning of this word dissent. Efforts to silence dissent cannot extinguish voices beyond the country's border. Now in New Delhi, responding to questions about Hasina's scheduled interaction, Randhir Jaiswal, who is the spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs, said, "The interaction you refer to is being organized by a private media entity. Government has no involvement whatsoever in it, neither does it endorse any views that may be expressed at the forum." Now, do you know, so this is just a history of India-Bangladesh relations. Bangladesh has been a key ally to India since Sheikh Hasina. Inke father was very closely involved with Indira Gandhi when Bangladesh's liberation happened in 1971, and Indo-Pak war also happened. So, 2000, from eradicating anti-India terrorist groups which operated out of safe havens in Bangladesh, which have now shifted to Myanmar, I feel, in Bangladesh to facilitate greater economic, social and cultural ties. Hasina's tenure has fostered a healthy relationship between New Delhi and Dhaka. Former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been living in exile in India since fleeing a student-led uprising in August 2024. Her presence in New Delhi remains a sensitive diplomatic issue, while Dhaka has requested her extradition and expressed concerns over her political statements from Indian soil. India maintains that private virtual events hosted for her carry no government endorsement. So let us see. There is one more question. Following statements about river bridges which connect India with neighboring countries. This is very important. So the first question is Maitri Setu, which is built over Feni River, connects Ramgarh in India with Sabarbhum in Bangladesh. Let us see. So it connects Ramgarh in India with Sabroom in Bangladesh. No, I think it connects Sabroom in India. Sabroom India में है with रामगढ़ इन बांग्लादेश. तो ये उल्टा इन्होंने लिख दिया है एंड 2026 में आया है. वाओ. सो देखिए कितना अच्छा ये इवेंट हुआ था अभी एंड उस पर क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया. सो सबरूम इंडिया में है, रामगढ़ बांग्लादेश में है. देन जूला घाट सस्पेंशन ब्रिज कनेक्ट्स इंडिया विथ म्यांमार. सो देखते हैं जूला घाट suspension. I think so this is incorrect. Jhula Ghat suspension bridge is an international footbridge which connects India and Nepal. तो ये भी गलत हो गया. Then is Mechi, which so third only is left, so that is Mechi bridge and its approaches connect Pani Tanki bypass in India with Kakarvitta in Nepal. So this is important. So Mechi bridge. Yeah, it connects Pani Tanki in India, that is West Bengal, with Kakarbhitta in the Jhapa district of Nepal. So third only. And there's one more question that has been asked in 2018 in Mains, which covered a similar theme. Analyze internal security, threats and trans-border crimes along Myanmar, Bangladesh and Pakistan borders, including the line of control. Also discuss the role played by various security forces in this regard. Now Yale to Cambridge, how the Odyssey is reviving academic cultural interest in an epic poem. So ये movie अभी आ रखी है, the Odyssey, which is very popular, and I see book my show पे it has got some 9.38 rating थी. So this is important from economy perspective and literature. जिनको interest है they can read the poem. So current events of national and international importance. General Studies 1, Indian Culture and History of the World. So Christopher Nolan की है. And GS1, Indian Culture and the History of the World. Now Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey has sparked plenty of debate online over how it interprets and diverges from the Homer's 3000-year-old epic, with viewers dissecting. So this is Homer की लिखी हुई किताब थी. poem thi basically, with viewers dissecting every scene. The film, however, has sparked such a renewed level of interest in the ancient Greek epic that many researchers and academicians are viewing it as a moment of cultural renaissance. Now, key points to remember. So, we have to connect the dots between the ancient Indian history, the Greek history, the culture, the Indo-Greek both, which are the kingdoms, and its impact on the Indian civilization. How Greco-Roman influenced early Indian sculptures, the Odyssey. What you know about the same. Now, which ancient civilization is associated with the Odyssey? Ancient epics are repositories of civilizational values discussed with reference to the Odyssey. Now compare the philosophical and ethical foundations of the Odyssey and the Ramayana. कुछ भी पूछ सकते हैं. What is the role of oral traditions in preserving ancient civilizations? Why has the Odyssey remained relevant for nearly 3,000 years? How can classical literature contribute to cultural diplomacy, and what leadership lessons can administrators learn from Odysseus? Now the Homeric homecoming is the paving way for a different kind of homecoming. Tailored courses, screenings of adaptations, free access to ancient literature and Greek research in leading universities across the world, even as the film's box office momentum shows no sign of slowing 2 weeks after release. Now, the University of Cambridge in the UK has opened up its research collection on the Odyssey till September 30, terming Nolan's cinematic adaptation as a significant cultural milestone. Cambridge faculty have also scheduled a webinar on August 4 titled Cambridge Classicists React to Nolan's Odyssey that will explore how the film reframes ancient narratives, the challenges of translating Bronze Age oral poetry into a visual medium, what Nolan's creative choices reveal about the current cultural relationship with the ancient world, and what the academics thought of the movie on a personal level. Now, the interest in Nolan's adaptation even preceded its release. Last spring, Yale University's Benedict Crucio taught a course called Odyssean Receptions, a journey through the history of literature and film. Now, in the course, he traced Odyssean influences throughout the history of literature and film, right from ancient epics and poetry to modern film adaptations such as The Coen Brothers or Brothers, Where Art Thou? Now, Crucius, who is assistant professor of classics at Yale, will teach this course again in a year. It's going to be accompanied by a series of film screenings that are open to public, and I'm developing another course that brings together ancient literature and film, which will investigate the relationship between Hollywood storytelling and ancient literary genres, he told the Indian Express. Now, Nolan's adaptations in his favorite, apart from films that engage more loosely with Homer, such as Jean-Luc Godard's Contempt in 1963 and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou 2001. Now, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey has introduced a new generation to one of the greatest adventurous stories ever told. Written by the ancient Greek poet Homer, the original epic follows Odysseus, who was king of Ithaca, as he struggles to return home after the Trojan War. Written nearly 3,000 years ago, it is a story of homecoming after war. Who was the king of Ithaca? Okay, return. Trojan War you all must have heard of. Now, set in a world populated by gods, monsters and mortals, its themes, characters and adventures have influenced storytelling ever since. Now, even those who have never opened the poem are likely to recognize its enduring influence, from Cyclops and the Sirens to the image of the Trojan horse. Now, one of the foundational works of the Western literature, the Odyssey, is one of two epic poems traditionally attributed to the Greek poet Homer, and they are generally dated to the 8th century BCE. The epic is often used to describe something monumental. In literature, however, an epic is a long narrative poem that typically deals with extraordinary figures, heroic deeds, and the interventions of gods or other supernatural forces. Now, both the Iliad and the Odyssey have sparked debate about their authorship, triggering what is known as the Homeric question. Scholars continue to debate whether Homer was a historic individual, a name who is attached to an oral poetic tradition, or some combination of both. So, never read the Odyssey? Here's what you need to know before watching the new film. So, if you want to, you can go, but it's okay. Now, with reference to the cultural history of India, the memorizing of chronicles, dynastic histories, and epic tales was the professions of who are the following. So, Shramana, Parivrajika, Agraharika, or the Magda. I think Shramana must be some labor kind of something, and Parivrajika, I don't think so. Agraharika, I think it should be D. Magda. Yes, so it's Magda. So the concept of just and unjust is contextual. So this is come in GS4 2024. Ethics. I don't know. I have written this paper, so nostalgia. The concept of just and unjust is contextual. What was just a year back may turn out to be unjust in today's context. Changing context should be constantly under scrutiny to prevent the miscarriage of justice. Examine the above statement with suitable examples, and I have scored a 119 in ethics. Safeguarding the Indian art heritage is the need of the monument. Discuss. Okay. GS1 ka hai. Cut, hike, and hold how RBI decides the monetary policy. So this is the UN chief. I think this should be last thing and that we are doing. Okay, cut, hike, and hold. How RBI decides monetary policy. Now, preliminary examination, economic, social development, poverty, inclusion, demographics, social sector initiatives, etc. Mains examinations, GS3, Indian economy, and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development, and employment. So, what's the ongoing story? Now, on August 5th, the Monetary Policy Committee of India's Central Bank, the RBI, will unveil its next policy statement. So, what's the point of RBI's monetary policy reviews? What are the factors the RBI has to consider? What is MPC? How many members it comprises of? Every year, the question comes. The setting up of a committee to decide on monetary policy was first proposed by which committee? What is the meaning of withdrawal of accommodation in RBI? Now, what are the instruments of monetary policy? Once every 2 months, the RBI's MPC sits down to take stock of India's economy and decide whether it wants to change the interest rates prevailing in the country. Now, once every 2 months, that is the keyword. Most economists and observers expect the RBI to maintain a status quo on interest rates. The lack of any changes in the interest rates, however, should not distract from the fact the world over economies are facing a fairly unprecedented level of uncertainty. Even when a central bank decides to do nothing, as it were, it bases its decisions after considering several factors. Now, a 6-member statutory body, led by the Reserve Bank of India governor, that fixes the benchmark repo rate to target inflation while supporting growth. ये definition है RBI Monetary Policy Committee की, और पूरा इसी में लिख दिया उन्होंने. एक 6-member statutory body है, that is by the law. It is led by the RBI governor. It fixes the benchmark repo rate, the interest rates in the country, and which two dual-fold objectives होते हैं. One is to target inflation, the other is to support growth. Now, established in 2016, it includes 3 RBI officials and 3 government-appointed external members. Monetary policy essentially deals with the supply and cost interest rates of money in an economy. The RBI's MPC meets every 2 months to assess. So every 2 months it deals with the supply and cost interest rates of money in an economy to assess the state of monetary activities. Now, and may tweak the repo rate, the interest rates at which the RBI is lending to commercial banks in a manner that reduces price fluctuations in the economy while keeping the inflation rate, the rate at which the general price level in the economy grows, at a reasonable level. So, other important articles, okay, let's see. With reference to Indian economy, consider the following. These are bank rate, open market operations, public debt, and public revenue. Which of the following or the above is or components of monetary policy? So, ये RBI की monetary policy it is deciding the repo rate, the rate at which RBI lends to the commercial banks, which decides the inflation at the same time opens the road. So, bank rate बहुत ज़रूरी है. Public debt, public revenues का part नहीं होते हैं. I think 1 and 2 इसका आंसर होना चाहिए C. So, to become the next UN chief, getting P5 on board is key. Okay. So, current events of national and international importance, and GS2 IR agencies, institutions, fora, their structures and mandates. So, UN इसलिए important है mains के लिए भी. Now, the UNSC held its first straw poll, एक keyword है यहाँ पे, on Thursday, July 30th for choosing the next Secretary General of the UN, that is UNSG, Secretary General of the UN, whose 5-year term would start on January 1st, 2027. Now, who is the current GenSec? You must know. What is the role of UN GenSec in maintaining international peace security? How is the Secretary General of the United Nations appointed? Major limitations faced by UN conflict resolutions. कुछ कर नहीं पाते हैं वैसे भी. What is the Security Council? Non-permanent members, permanent members. Compare, contrast. Who are the 15 members of the UNSC? How voting system works in UNSC? On what basis was Security Council permanent membership granted? How are the non-permanent members of Security Council selected? Are UN resolutions binding? How does the Security Council determine the existence of any threat to the peace, breach, of the peace or act of aggressions. Veto power was granted in the UN Charter 77 years ago to encourage each other. But it has turned out that the power is being used to block, analyze. Now, UNSC has become paralyzed and dysfunctional in its present form as it has not been able to take any decision since the Russia-Ukraine war started. How far do you agree with the given statement? India, United Nations, you must know in detail. What has been India's stand on UN's reformations? Now, although the polls results weren't announced, it is informally believed that 3 candidates from Latin America have scored well. Costa Rica's Rebecca Greenspan, an economist who heads the UN Trade and Development, UNCTAD, Caroline Burkett, Guyana's permanent representative to the UN, and Rafael Grossi from Argentina, who is the Director General of International Atomic Energy Agency. Now, considering the current UNSG, Antonio Guterres, he is from Portugal. His immediate 2 predecessors were Asia, Ban Ki-moon of South Korea, and Africa, Kofi Annan of Ghana, respectively. The expectation is that this time the choice will fall on someone from Latin America, and perhaps a woman, as none have held the position. Apart from the 3, that is Greenspan, Burkett and Grossi, there are 4 others in the fray. Michelle Bachelet, former President of Chile, Maria Esponza Espinosa, former Foreign Minister of Ecuador, Macky Sall, former President of Senegal, and Olara Otunnu, a former senior UN official from Uganda. Now, candidate needs to be endorsed by at least one member state, though not necessarily by their own country. The process of appointing, and this is an important part, the process of appointing and selecting the next Secretary General is based on General Assembly resolutions and guided by the principles of transparency and inclusivity. The UN Secretary General is officially appointed by the General Assembly upon the recommendations of Security Council. So it is officially appointed by the General Assembly upon the recommendations of Security Council as outlined in Article 97 of the UN Charter. Now, in practice, the process is a secretive, highly political procedure dominated by the 5 permanent veto-wielding members of the Security Council: US, UK, China, France and Russia. The selection process involves nominations. Member states submit candidates who participate in dialogues and submit their vision statements. Then there are straw polls and veto powers. The Security Council holds secret ballots with colored ballots indicating veto powers from the P5 members. A single discourage vote from a permanent member ends a candidacy. Recommendation: the Council recommends a candidate who secures 9 votes with no vetoes. General Assembly appointment: the 193 member Assembly officially then appoints the candidates, usually by consensus. With reference to the UN Credentials Committee, consider the following statements. It is a committee that is set up by UNSC and works under its supervisions. It traditionally meets in March, June, September every year. It assesses the credentials of all UN members before submitting a report to the General Assembly for approval. So, what should be the answer? The answer should be 3 only. It assesses and before. I don't think it traditionally meets in the specific month because it's a very informal council and it's not set up by UNSC, it is set up by UNGA. So the United Nations Credentials Committee is appointed at the beginning of each regular session of the General Assembly. It consists of 9 members. It functions in the auspices of UN General Assembly. It meets in November only. And the third is correct one. Okay, there is one more question which has come with reference to the UNGA. It can grant observer status to the non-member states. Intergovernmental organizations can seek observer status in the UN General Assemblies, and permanent observers in the UN General Assemblies can maintain missions at the UN headquarters. I think इसका D हो सकता है या D. Permanent observers in the UN General Assemblies can maintain missions at the UN headquarters. 6 का सीधा 3rd था. I told you 5th का भी C था. Let us see 5th question. ठीक है, C था. I told you 1 and 2. एंड 4th का मैंने क्या मार्क किया था, नीचे के देख लेंगे. अच्छा, D 4th का D होना चाहिए. 4th का D है. 3 का भी D लिखा है. का भी D किया था हमने. इसका हमने सी किया था एंड इसका ए सी, जिसकी बहुत ज़रूरत है गर्मियों में। ए सी ठीक है। सो दिस इज़ फॉर टुडे।